Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Speedify Live Office Hours. I'm Alex. This is Kevin. And before we jump into the usual stuff, Dodie has a question for us. And we're going to answer it first because they're in a hurry. My issue with Speedify seems to be what I need for when the Starlink goes from one satellite to another. How do I hook this up? I'd like to be hardwired from the Starlink and iPad. I stream youth baseball using 3 Mevo starts and a Nearstream MV33. I connect everything with a Slate AX 180 GLI net router, and I use a Slate AX 1800 GLI net repeater when necessary. I have Mevo multicam on an iPad. All right, yeah. Kevin, you got some thoughts for?
Yes, I mean, the one short answer is that when the Starlink's working, it's great, but when it's switching and you have those gaps, if you can have another connection in there to kind of pave over the gaps and help fill in the gaps, that's best. So whether it's a cellular connection that you can have access to or some other connection, that's in short what you want to do. So you can run Speedify on the Slate AX router. If you have the Starlink hardwired in there, then you need to get a cellular connection. You have a few options for that. One, you could tether something directly to the Slate AX router. They have a USB port. You could tether a phone in there and get a cellular connection that way, and then have Speedify combine those. You have the Starlink as the primary, and your cellular is the secondary, and it'll switch in and fill in the gaps with the cellular when the Starlink goes out. Or the other option is our pair and share feature. You can have a phone that's running Speedify join the Slate AX hotspot, and then it can share its cellular connection over the local Wi-Fi to Speedify running on the router, and you can do it that way rather than hardwired tethering. So either there's an option, but basically you want to get another connection into Speedify to combine with the Starlink and cover up those gaps.
Yeah, even a connection that you don't think of as quite good enough to stream, right? If the reason you're using the Starlink is, the 4G or whatever isn't quite good enough in the field. I mean, if it doesn't work at all, it doesn't work at all. But if that's not quite good enough, it may still be good enough to fill in those gaps in the Starlink and put together to give you something really, really good. All right, so as you guys probably figured out, this is Speedify Office Hours. You guys hit us with questions, us being the makers of Speedify, and we answer them. So hit us up. If you haven't liked, by the way, like us, follow us, subscribe, whatever the buttons say underneath wherever you're watching the stream. We do appreciate it, so you get notified next time we're live. All right. There. And I just noticed I also use a Verizon hotspot. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, I think there are a couple of ways to do that. You can join the Wi-Fi of it, but they also have typically USB.
Yeah.
Right? I think you can connect a USB cable from that into your AX 1800. I think the AX 1800 will see it, as a wired hotspot, right? Yeah. And I think that'll work, and Speedify will let you combine both. All right. Certified says, "Hello team. I have a MacBook Air and in a place with a bad connection, I have fiber optic, a 5G router, and a Starlink, plus cellular on my Samsung. Since MacBook doesn't connect to more than one Wi-Fi, does it mean I have to take all the routers basically Ethernet and connect multiple Ethernet connections to Speedify? Is this the only way I can benefit?" Yes. There's also USB. There's Ethernet and there's USB, right? A USB-C hub, perhaps with Ethernet adapters off it, can get you to a lot of things.
Yeah. The other option is to have another device that runs Speedify to kind of serve as a router. You can get a Linux device, or there's routers and GLI net routers, like he was talking about. If you can get your different connections into that and then share that to your MacBook or whatever other devices want to use the combined connection. So yeah, if you're having trouble with the logistics of getting it all plugged into the MacBook, maybe having another device where you plug it all in there and then that shares to the MacBook is an option. But yeah, Mac is tricky with their management of multiple connections. They've kind of locked down, third-party Wi-Fi adapters and things like that. So it makes it tricky to get additional connections on the Mac sometimes. But yeah, USB Ethernet adapters should work on a Mac, and yeah, you can tether things through USB usually.
Yeah. Bradley says, I love having Speedify on the go, but I have to use a secondary overlay VPN that routes everything in my home network for my LAN WAN. Would you ever consider adding a custom relay feature? We would. We are considering it. It's kind of on the roadmap. I'd like to see it sometime this year, but I can't quite promise that. Yeah, we're playing around with relays. It would be nice, right? You're right. So another suggestion from somebody. And Samsung should be able to share its cellular wirelessly with parent share without taking its Wi-Fi adapter. Right. So if that Samsung, you install Speedify on it and put it on the same Wi-Fi, you can use parent share to connect to it and share cellular over the Wi-Fi back to your main computer. That's a good suggestion. All right. So for some reason on our videos, a lot of people have been talking to us about quantum technologies of the future. A lot of people, for some reason on our videos, have been asking how we feel about the fact that there's now, you can do quantum faster than light communications, and how revolutionary that is and how that's going to change everything. I don't know what they're talking about. If any of you do. So there's lots of neat quantum stuff coming out. There's quantum encryption. This really works, where you can send a message in a laser, and if anyone looks at the message before you receive it, then it's corrupted. This actually works. It's totally weird. If they split off, if they peek at it, they corrupt the message. So if you receive it, then you know for 100% fact no one's listening in on the conversation. That works, but it's not faster than the speed of light. There's still this laser that has to go to take care of it. So quantum gives all these neat things, and there's the quantum computers, which I may ramble on in a minute. All right, we got a simple question here. Is there a limitation on the number of tethered phones or hotspots macOS can support? Speedify, I believe, has a limit of 31 internet connections that we can handle at the same time. I assume if there's a limit in macOS, I haven't seen it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a limit of 1,024 or something. But I don't know. All this stuff just becomes impractical long before it becomes impossible. Right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with 1,000 Ethernet devices?
But yeah, I'm not sure that we've tested enough to know if there's what the actual limit is. I know we've hooked up a bunch of different connections to Macs in the past, but I don't know specifically on tethered phones what the limit is.
Yeah, again, I still think the record for legitimate number of connections, I think we once had someone with 12. And with reasons for each of the 12. Everything beyond, and for most people, it's, they're happy if they get 3 connections, right? I think anyone who's ever had more than 12 connections has turned out to just be trying to see how many connections they can get, right? All right. What is the best server for gaming?
I guess we need more context on that. So there's
Depends
a bunch of things
on the game is the number one question.
Yeah.
Odds are it's the closest server to you.
Yeah.
But if you happen to know what your game server is, at various points there have been a bunch of games where it turns out everyone playing in the world was connecting to Seattle. In that case, you may well discover that a server in Seattle does you better than the closest server. But different games are so different.
Yeah, and just depending how things route through the internet from you to the particular server, I mean, you might want to experiment. Sometimes you can find weird things where a server that's a little further away on actual internet distance of how things route actually takes a less congested path or something. So yeah, I'd say there's a little experimentation there of what gives you the best results. But yeah, probably either closest to you or closest to your gaming server. But yeah, check around and see.
I submitted my logs to Speedify. Fantastic. I'll be honest, I'm not remembering what your problem is right now. But I assume you put in your email. Feel free to mention it here, David. So we got some recent videos out. We put out a Between Two Palms. It's on our YouTube channel. I think most of you are watching on YouTube. If not, pop over to YouTube, look for Speedify. We got one about the Interplanetary Internet. People seem to be loving this. Discussions on how we would extend the internet to work on Mars and on the moon. This is just one of those things I've enjoyed reading about. It's not quite work, but it's neat stuff. You have serious issues with speed of light and things passing on the other side of the sun. And what are your thoughts on the Apple C1 chip? Hoping one day to be able to use Speedify with multiple cellular connections on one phone. Apple currently allows cellular data switching. So this is the new Apple cellular chip. You know why I'm excited about it? Because of Macs, not the phones. So apparently, they've been buying chips from Qualcomm. And their deal with Qualcomm is they have to pay a percentage of the cost of the phone to Qualcomm for the chips, which is why there's no cellular modems in Macs. Because if you slap, if you're paying, 10% of the value of the device and you slap it in a $4,000 Mac, that chip costs you $400, and Apple's not going to pay that. And that's why there's no cellular Macs. If they make their own chips, they don't have to pay that. So you're suddenly, this is my prediction, is that for the iPhones, it's a non-event. I mean, what do you care? What do you care if Apple gets to make iPhones for less money? They're probably not going to pass the savings on to you. But I think there's going to be Macs. I think there's going to be Macs with cellular now. I think probably every Mac is going to have cellular now. Because their chip, they'll just slap it in there. It costs them very, very little. And there's such economies of scale that they might as well just make as many of the chips as they can, drive down the cost per chip. All right. Bradley asks, what's the secret sauce behind Speedify? How do you get cellular modem enabled on Android and iOS with Wi-Fi still enabled?
So I'd say that's not the secret sauce part. I mean, on Android, that's just in the Android APIs. There's ways to do that, but it's what we do with those connections and all the management of how we create connections over them and route your packets and everything. That's a lot of the secret sauce. Watching the stats of each of your internet connections and making intelligent decisions. But yeah, Android and iOS, the cellular is pretty much always enabled. You just have to know how to use it. But neither of those parts are really that secret. There's other apps that do that stuff.
It's possible that Kevin's been doing this for so long that he no longer even knows. There's you wrote really smart code to decide when the cellular should be on.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's easy to keep it on, actually. But then you drain the battery. So instead, we just need it on every time we need it.
Right.
And it turns out sometimes it takes more than a second to turn on. So how do you know when you're gonna need it? I think
so
I think there's a bunch of stuff that does count as secret sauce.
Right. That's my point. The actual mechanism of turning it on isn't the hard part. It's deciding when to turn it on, when to use it, and there's a lot of smarts in there, a lot of decision making.
I'm sure Elon is already working on Internet on Mars. Yeah, so that's one of the comments that kicked off this whole series of videos, is he said he was going to put Starlinks around Mars, and so you'd have Starlink Internet on Mars. And in a nutshell, my argument is you can build an internet on Mars, but it's going to be a separate internet from Earth. Mars is between 3 and 22 light minutes away from Earth. None of the internet protocols we use today will work properly. I know. So people jump in and say, UDP. UDP works fine. UDP works fine, but not a single app anyone uses that uses UDP will work across that kind of delay. So we get into it. NASA and these international CCSDS have been writing protocols for use between planets. And they're, not TCP and they're not UDP, LTP, bundle protocol. So there's this idea that each planet and their moons will have an internet. And then there'll be this interplanetary network running all different protocols to link them together. And yeah, so we turn into a whole lot of videos, and people like them. They're getting lots of views and lots of people commenting about quantum stuff. So old MacBook connects to my cell phone, Samsung, using parent share. But new MacBook Pro does not parent share with my cell phone. I do remember. Thank you, David, for the reminder. All right, so you sent logs. We will look at those. That was a mysterious problem. All right. Riley says, I have 2 eSIMs active on my phone, and Apple allows cellular data switching. Turn this feature on will allow your phone to use cellular data from both lines. Will Speedify ever be able to use both?
So yeah, really the limitation there is your phone can connect to 2 different networks, but it only has one cellular radio, and it's just deciding which network to use at a particular time. So Speedify can use whichever one's active. If we get devices that truly have 2 cellular radios in them that you can simultaneously really use both networks, then there could be benefit to Speedify, getting access and using both. But basically, they're just sharing the 2 SIMs. Even if you're switching between them really fast, they're just sharing the same modem. You're not getting any better performance necessarily.
Typically, you've got one turned on as the main data one, and the other one seems to work. Like you'll get messages from it and stuff. Really, your phone is just about once a minute popping over to the other network and saying, any messages for me? If so, grabbing them, popping back and saying, oh, new message. So, I mean, that's the nutshell. It's really just one radio going back and forth.
But yeah, maybe someday they might make phones with multiple cellular modems.
Riley asked, do you know if C1 has just one modem or 2? I do not know at this time. I feel like if there was 2 modems, we would have heard about it, but yeah. Getting data to Mars is about as efficient as internet over carrier pigeon. Yes. Yeah, I mean, protocols like TCP stall out, right? It sends a bunch of data and then waits to hear it got there. If it's 22 minutes away, the whole thing stalls out and you really can't use the link. And yeah, there are some parameters in TCP you can tune to make it deal better with long delays. You can tune them far enough that it basically will work to the moon. You cannot tune them far enough to work on Mars. But, all right, what else? Yeah, so check that stuff out. Our Between Two Palms videos, they're on the Speedify account in YouTube. All right, Speedify, what's the latest version out there?
Right now it's 15.4.1. We're planning Speedify 15.5. Looks like it'll probably be next week. I think we were thinking maybe this week, but yeah, I think we've got some more changes that we need to get in, so I think probably be next week we'll do Speedify version 15.5.
So what's new in 15.5? You can spill the beans.
Yeah, we got a few different things coming. One of the big things we've been working on is for those of you with Starlinks, being able to poke the there's a gRPC server running on the the Starlink router, being able to poke that and pull some stats about your Starlink from it, and be able to show different alerts. If things aren't aligned correctly, or there's a whole list of different problems that can happen. Speedify can alert you in the UI. And even what's nice is if you have multiple Starlinks, there's some people that have multiple Starlinks, we can poke each of them separately and show you stats in the UI, which, without Speedify, there's a bit of juggling there. If you have to enable one connection or the other to do that type of stuff, where we can poke both of them simultaneously over each interface for you. We'll kind of automatically detect that the ISP is Starlink and reach out and do that. So that's one thing we've been working on. Hopefully some more performance improvements. We're always tweaking things with that. And trying to remember what else. There's a bunch of different things we've been working on recently.
Thoughts on the overhyped 5G promises, and have you heard anything on 6G? So have I heard anything on 6G? I hear companies talking about like their fancy new antenna technology that they're trying to get in 6G. We're a little early, right? So the new Gs always come out in years that end in 1, right? So 5G came out in 2021, 4G came out in 2011, 3G came out in 2001. So we're kind of in the middle of the cycle. I think people are still arguing about what 6G will be. I don't think they're even really designing products yet. We're right in the middle of the 5G wave right now. Yeah, they overhyped 5G, but I've heard they did it to trick lawmakers into giving them all this bandwidth, saying they would do all this revolutionary stuff, and they've just jammed so many people onto it. It's not that the technology, like 5G, is capable of going at 1 gigabit per second, but who has that much bandwidth? They're not running connections that fast to the towers. They have so many cell phones on each tower that you're all sharing, 2 gigabits or something, right? So there's no way for one person to take. Assuming that stuff's there, but they've just jammed so many of us onto it. The other thing you hear about a lot from people who work at the carriers is that they're still doing the NSA thing. So 5G has 2 modes. It has one mode where it owns the band, and you have a frequency that's used for nothing but 5G. And there's another mode where it shares a band with 4G. And if a phone can only do 4G, it does 4G. But if it can do 5G, it does 5G. And that mode, when you're in that mode, the 5G is actually much, much slower. Once it's sharing with the 4G, it can't go full speed anymore. So when I complain to my friends at cellular carriers about 5G, they'll say, well, you're not using real 5G yet. You're still on the shared 4-band. Like, well, it's been years, guys, and you guys control that. I'm using the only 5G that you sell. And they're like, yeah, that's true. So that's my thoughts on that. All right, Tom says, I use my Android box for my TV service. Speedify seems to work for a while and shuts off after half an hour. I've sent into support, but the problem continues. Is this an issue with Android?
Yeah, we'll have to see. I would say send us logs. Do you have any other VPNs installed that might be trying to connect? And that's a common one we see, where another VPN comes along and tries to connect, and that the operating system says, nope, Speedify doesn't have permission to via VPN anymore, to shut down. So that's getting interrupted by other applications is a common thing that we'll see. But yeah, if you send us logs, we can see if something's triggering us to shut off or if there's something else happening. But yeah, Speedify should be staying connected.
Bradley suggests that perhaps the Android power box is underpowered and killing Speedify.
Yeah, that could be that, or if you have some sort of power, sometimes there's power saving things that come along and kill different apps or whatever, data saver applications.
Yeah. Sometimes they put in weird power saving things that just kill apps running in the background even. And so there'll be settings usually somewhere to turn that stuff off. Right. Most G is mostly non-standalone anyway. NSA, non-standalone. Right. So in that non-standalone mode, it is significantly slower than if it's in standalone new radio mode. So yes, so most of the 5G you get is 5G shared with 4G on one band, and that stops the 5G from being able to go full speed. Or faux G. Very clever, John. All right. Michael says, and millimeter wave is really only useful in an arena or where large crowds gather. Right. So the ultra wideband millimeter wave is where, you know, Verizon in particular made a lot of the craziest claims about high speeds. Those are high frequencies that really don't go through walls or windows. So really, I would agree, probably misleading claims in some of those early commercials and stuff. So I think it does make sense. It's a cool technology, as Michael said here, in an arena, right? Or there's all these people in the stands trying to use their phones, and you can use this high frequency to beam, you know, huge amounts of internet right to them. You could see the phones in their hands because they're sitting in the tiers of stands. But for those of us driving cars or sitting in our offices and stuff, it doesn't really work. So them kind of claiming some of those speeds was in fact misleading, but I think it is in fact an awesome technology that works for stadiums, right? Any plan to offer to just TTL?
For what purpose? I guess I'm missing the context on what.
All right. Hey guys, we use the YoloBox, which now has bonding built in, but it's more expensive than Speedify. It's also Chinese technology that government agencies aren't allowed to use and stuff in the US. But it's more expensive than Speedify. I've been trying to find a workflow to use Speedify with the YoloBox. I know it used to work. I don't have a YoloBox. You know, I don't know. YOLO wasn't super excited, but it's an Android device. People have told us before, right? On our download page, we have a link to just download the APK. And if you can install an APK, I've heard from people before that it works, but YoloBox is not considered a supported platform, but if it works for you, good for you. Give it a try platform.
Yeah. And if you're having a particular issue, let us know, and we'll see if it's something we can tweak or adjust.
You can also definitely put it on Speedify on a GLINet router, which is now a supported platform, and connect your YoloBox to that. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. They've got some Chinese 10-cent bonding thing in there. I don't know whether it works or not, but I know I wouldn't put my data in it. All right. I use Magewell Mini, and Speedify is now built in very nicely, in fact. I know that doesn't help your situation, but maybe something to look into, even as parent share. Yeah. So the Magewell Director Mini is probably what you're talking about. It's a really nice little device. It's got a video encoder, a screen where you can like control overlays and switch between multiple cameras. It can take in 2 HDMI's, so right? So you can switch between cameras, stuff like that. You can kind of little mini control studio in your hand. It runs Speedify. It's got a bunch of ports, USB, Ethernet, stuff like that. It's a nice little device. To just details the carrier's not detecting the number of hops. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to assume you're talking about parent share, because Speedify normally running on a phone that shows as native traffic coming from the phone. So if you're running Speedify directly over your cellular connection, that doesn't show up as tethered traffic. But with parent share, because it's hopping from another device, the TTL shows
At this
up as
time,
tethered.
no. At this time, we are trying to be good citizens who do not get banned from the App Store. I think Verizon has the power to get apps banned from the App Store.
Yeah.
All right. I sent the logs, and they said the same thing. I have no other VPN on the box. You said something about Power Saver on the box. Could be the problem. Could you explain? In settings on the box in the Android, I don't know what settings you have in there.
Yeah, it can be different from device to device, but yeah, try looking at power settings, or is the Speedify app, sometimes it'll put it in battery saver profile where it'll get killed if it's in the background, things like that. So try and look around in the power settings and make sure Speedify has permission to run in the background and that it's not going to get killed. But yeah, with Android, it can be different from device to device exactly where those settings are and what settings are offered. And then there could be third-party apps doing similar things too, depending what you have installed. Yeah, hard to say, but yeah, try searching for battery or power or things like that in the settings and see if there's stuff around Speedify. Make sure it's not like a restricted mode or whatever.
Yeah. I have the Puli AX GL. Yeah. So GL iNet has a wide range of routers, some of which we work on, some of which we don't. But I'm under the impression that we work on all of the routers that have an AX in the name. Right? Those are the new batch. So yeah, anything with an AX in the name we work in. And some of the others, it's a little bit complicated, this whole table. So yeah, that's good. All right. Boo, boo, boo. All right, 1036. We talked about Speedify between two palms. Yeah, sorry. Quantum entanglement does not let you send messages faster than the speed of light. It is brutal, but it is true. It was proven in 1978, the no communications theorem. Yeah, it's kind of mathematically proven that there is no way to use quantum entanglement to go fast and send data faster than the speed of light, which is sad. I would like to. Very mixed on quantum computers. So, 20 years ago, I hate to say it, I thought maybe I should go back to grad school, get a PhD in quantum computing. So I got a bunch of textbooks and papers and read them and said, I don't know if this is ever going to work, even if it works. So in a nutshell, quantum computers, they can try every possibility on your data at the same time. So they can do massive numbers of combinations, computations that would take a regular computer billions of years. Sometimes they can do in like one instruction. And it is remarkable. The problem with them is, there's always a problem. If you read anything out of their memory, you collapse the waveform, erase all of their memory. So you can load data in, do a bunch of math on it, a huge amount of math on it. And when you read out the answer, you erase it. And you have to start completely over. So you can't check in on how's your quantum computer doing. Is it halfway done? Oh, crap, erased it. So you hear stuff like, well, it could search a database of billions of records in one operation. Well, it can, but you erase the database. So then you have to reload it, and it's billions of operations to run through every row of the database and reload it into the quantum computer so that you can search it. Turns out we have indexes that can search things in less than ON if you just keep it in a regular computer, because regular computer doesn't erase things. So this is why everyone says it can even break encryption, because encryption uniquely has a very small amount of data with an unbelievably huge amount of computation you want to do on it, right? So it's good at that, because it's not a big deal if you erase the little bit of encrypted memory. You can just load it again. So I don't know how many things there are in the real world where there's a tiny bit of data you want to do a huge amount of calculations on. There's a lot more huge amounts of data you want to do a huge amount of calculations on. Quantum computers aren't actually good at that. So I'm kind of negative on the whole quantum computer thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be use cases where they will be useful, but yeah, I think it's not going to replace every type of computing task, at least from my understanding.
Have you seen the double slit experiments where scientists could affect light patterns in the past from the future backwards data time travel? I have seen those, and they are, as Einstein said, spooky. But there's no data. This is a trick. You have to get the messages back and forth to see what you saw and what the other guy saw. And when you exchange a couple messages, then you realize, holy cow, that was spooky. You saw it before I did. But there's no way to use that to send a message back. It's complicated, but it's real, right? You have to exchange messages outside the quantum about what did you see? What did I see? Wait a minute. That means it time traveled. And those kind of creepy things do happen, but the rules are carefully made so you can't pass information with this creepy stuff. It's only afterwards when you're talking to the person about what time they saw what that you realize. Yeah, and really, really smart people spent a lot of time, and they got it down to a theorem by 1978 where they proved that none of the quantum rules of physics could ever send anything faster than the speed of light. And Einstein, of course, was the king of this stuff. He didn't believe in quantum. So he, basically wrote out all these experiments. Like, if quantum was real, then if you did this and this and this would happen. And that just proves it's nonsense. And they went through all of the things Einstein said, and they all work. The case. Oh, I was thinking to simply exploit the stock market with a machine like that. Damn. Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't work. Yeah, it just doesn't work. It is brutal. It's so weird because this stuff is so spooky, you would think, but somehow it all turns out to be less useful than you would imagine. I mean, there's quantum entanglement. That really works. They've done that, where you pass the message in a laser, and if anyone observes it, then you don't get the message on the other side. That's a spooky quantum thing that works in the real world. So person lasers you the message, and if you get it, no one listened in. Creepy. But that is about it for the quantum stuff. It'd be so nice to be able to send things fast than the speed of light. Although Einstein also showed that if basically once you can send something fast than the speed of light, you have time travel, right? You send them the message, and they send you the reply, and then you get the reply before you sent the first message. That stuff starts happening if anything's going fast than the speed of light. Yeah, so probably not going to happen, but it'd be fun. All right, so do check out those Between Two Palm videos. We go on a lot about networks between the Earth and the Moon, networks between the Earth and Mars, how it would all work. Probably listen to the whole thing before you declare I'm an idiot. All these people are like, you just have to make a new protocol. Yes, the video is about the people making the new protocol. And yeah, and the word just does a lot of work. They've poured tens of millions of dollars into designing these protocols and actually testing them to Mars. And it's really cool stuff. People are like, just design a new protocol. Yeah. So, all right, you got anything to add, Kevin? Anything for our Speedify users out there?
No,
I feel like I'm babbling now. All right, this has been cool, but I think we are going to call it a day. See you guys next Wednesday, which is the next time we're live. And, yeah. All right, see you all online.